This is Geometry Lesson 10.2. In this lesson we're going to look at the volume of prisms and cylinders. So one volume formula that you're probably familiar with is for a rectangular prism. We usually learn it length times width times height. Basically you're just multiplying the three dimensions of the figure. And the reason this works is because if I want to talk about how many cubes are in this layer, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, that's 3 by 2, so there are 6 in this layer. And there are 6 in this layer, and 6 in this layer, 6 in all 4 of the layers. So if we have 3 times 2 gave me 6, times 4 layers, that's how many cubes fit in this solid. That's the volume of the solid, 3 times 2 times 4. And that works for really large shapes where you wouldn't necessarily want to count each individual one. Like I have 3 in this row, by 8 rows that makes 24, times 12 layers. If I do 8 times 3 times 12, it'll give me the volume of this shape. Same thing here, 10 times 10 times 30 gives me the volume of this shape. We can apply the same idea to a triangular prism. If we know how many cubes are on the bottom layer, times how many layers there are, that'll tell us how many cubes will fit inside the shape. Well, that's just the area of the base, that's how many cubes fit on the bottom layer, times the number of layers. Last thing to consider before we get all of our formulas is whether a prism is right, meaning straight up and down, or oblique, meaning kind of slanted. It's going to have the same volume. When you shift a stack of papers, it doesn't change how many papers are in the stack. When you shift a stack of crackers, it doesn't change how many crackers are in the stack. So this cylinder, if you can imagine it being solid, and this cylinder are going to have the same volume. We just need to look at the height, not how long the side is when we're calculating that measurement. Because the height is going to be how many layers it is, not how long the side is. Okay, so on to some formulas. The general formula for the volume of a prism or cylinder is the area of the base, represented by a capital B, times the height of the prism, represented by a capital H. So depending on what shape the base takes, this is going to change. So I'm going to try to type these because I think it'll be neater and easier to read than if I wrote them with my mouse. But if you have a rectangular prism, a rectangle on the base, the volume will equal base times height, because the area of a rectangle is base times height, times height. So I'm using a little h to represent the height of the rectangle and a capital H to represent the height of the entire prism, the 3D object. If I have a circle on the bottom, meaning I have a cylinder, then the volume will be pi times the radius squared. That is our formula for the area of a circle, and then again times the height, because that's how many circles or layers would fit inside the shape. If I have a trapezoidal base, like the one that was in this picture, just slid down, but that's a trapezoid, then the volume of the prism is going to be equal to the area of the trapezoid, which is base 1 plus base 2 times the height divided by 2. That's our area of a trapezoid. And then again, they all end with times the height of the prism. And the final one that you'll come across in this lesson is triangle. The triangle area is base times height divided by 2. And then multiplying by the height gives us the volume. So to use some of these, this one's a trapezoidal prism. It tells us here, and we can recognize that this is a trapezoid. We'll substitute 4 for base 1. Here's base 1. We'll substitute 8 for base 2. Here's base 2. We'll substitute 5 for the height. This is the height of the trapezoid. And then we'll substitute 10 for the capital H. That's the height of the whole prism. So the volume will be equal to 4 plus 8 times 5 divided by 2 times 10. So you can use your calculator to type this in one big expression. You don't need to worry about piecing it out. Just remember to use your parentheses appropriately, and the answer will be 300 for the volume of this shape. Okay. Over here we have a cylinder. So a cylinder has a circle in the base, so I'm going to use my formula that has a circular base, pi times the radius squared times the height. So the volume of my cylinder will be pi times the radius squared, the radius is 6, times the height, and the height in this one is 7. Remember, when you're measuring height, you're standing straight up and down. We don't lean, we don't slant when we take height, it's straight up and down. So pi times 6 squared times 7. I have 791.7 using the pi button on my calculator. If you don't have a pi button, you can use 3.14. Your answer will be off by a smidgen, but it's still correct. I'm using 3.14 times 6 squared times 7. I get 791.3. And that is it for lesson 2. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck with the exercises.